Inflation, the unseen force changing our lives. Welcome to Econo Watch, your go-to channel for insightful discussions on the U.S. economy and global economic trends that impact our daily lives. Today, we're diving into a hot topic that has everyone talking: inflation. How is it reshaping our economy and affecting Americans' day-to-day lives? Let's break it down in a way that's easy to understand and sparks conversation. Inflation, the unseen force changing our lives. Inflation has been a buzzword lately, dominating headlines and stirring up debates. But what exactly is inflation? Simply put, inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises, causing purchasing power to fall. When inflation is high, every dollar you have buys less. This phenomenon is currently making waves in the U.S. economy, and its effects are being felt across the board. The current state of inflation. As of now, inflation rates are at levels not seen in decades. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, which measures the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a market basket of consumer goods and services, has been climbing steadily. This surge in inflation has been driven by various factors, including supply chain disruptions, increased demand post-pandemic, and rising costs of raw materials. How did we get here? To understand how we arrived at this point, we need to look at the pandemic's impact. When COVID-19 hit, the global economy took a significant blow. Businesses shut down, supply chains were disrupted, and unemployment soared. In response, governments around the world, including the U.S., implemented massive stimulus packages to keep economies afloat. While these measures were necessary, they also pumped a lot of money into the economy, contributing to inflation. The supply chain crisis. One of the major contributors to the current inflation is the ongoing supply chain crisis. With factories closing down during the pandemic and a surge in demand as economies reopened, the balance between supply and demand was thrown off. For instance, the automotive industry has been hit hard, with a shortage of semiconductors leading to higher prices for new and used cars. This ripple effect has been felt in various sectors, from electronics to household goods. The role of energy prices. Another critical factor is the rise in energy prices. Oil prices have been climbing due to geopolitical tensions and production cuts by major oil-producing countries. As energy prices rise, so do the costs of transportation and production for numerous goods and services. This increase gets passed down to consumers, contributing to overall inflation. The housing market boom. The housing market has also been a significant player in the inflation story. Low interest rates and a desire for more space during the pandemic led to a housing boom. Home prices soared as demand outstripped supply. For renters, the situation is equally challenging, with rental prices increasing sharply in many urban areas. This spike in housing costs significantly impacts the overall cost of living, making it harder for many Americans to afford basic necessities. The impact on everyday Americans. So, how does all this affect the average American? Let's break it down. 1. Groceries and daily necessities. Prices for everyday items like groceries have been rising. For example, meat, dairy, and produce have seen noticeable price increases. This rise makes it harder for families to stick to their budgets, especially those living paycheck to paycheck. 2. Gas prices. The cost of fuel is another area where inflation hits hard. Higher gas prices mean more expensive commutes and transportation costs, which can strain household finances. 3. Wages versus prices. While some wages have increased, they often haven't kept pace with inflation. This disparity means that even with higher pay, many workers find their purchasing power reduced. The gap between wage growth and inflation is a crucial point of concern for economists and policymakers alike. The Federal Reserve's role. The Federal Reserve plays a vital role in managing inflation. By adjusting interest rates and using other monetary policy tools, the Fed aims to control inflation and stabilize the economy. Recently, the Fed has signaled potential interest rate hikes to curb inflation. Higher interest rates can help cool down the economy by making borrowing more expensive, thus slowing down spending and investment. The debate. transitory or persistent. A significant debate among economists is whether the current inflation is transitory or persistent. Some argue that the factors driving inflation, like supply chain disruptions and pandemic-related issues, are temporary and will resolve over time. Others believe that we may be entering a period of sustained higher inflation due to structural changes in the economy. What can we expect moving forward? Predicting the future of inflation is complex, but there are a few scenarios to consider. 1. Continued high inflation. If supply chain issues persist and demand remains strong, we could see continued high inflation. This scenario would likely lead to more aggressive actions by the Federal Reserve to control price rises. 2. Gradual decline. If supply chains recover and demand stabilizes, inflation could gradually decline to more manageable levels. This outcome would depend on various factors, including the resolution of global trade disruptions and geopolitical stability. 3. Stagflation. A less likely but concerning scenario is stagflation, where high inflation is accompanied by stagnant economic growth. This situation is particularly challenging to manage and would require careful policy measures to address both inflation and growth. What can you do? As individuals, there are steps we can take to mitigate the impact of inflation on our lives. 1. Budgeting. Keeping a close eye on your expenses and creating a detailed budget can help manage rising costs. 2. Investing wisely. Consider investments that typically perform well during inflationary periods, such as real estate or commodities. 3. Reducing debt. Paying down high-interest debt can free up more of your income for essential expenses. Inflation is a complex and multifaceted issue that affects all of us. By understanding its causes and impacts, we can better navigate these challenging times. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. How has inflation impacted you? What steps are you taking to cope with rising prices? Join the conversation in the comments below and let's discuss. Thank you for watching Econo Watch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest economic trends. Stay informed, stay prepared, and see you next time.